Hi everyone, it's Caris. A couple of things before I get on with the video. First of all, as you can probably tell, I have changed my layout up a bit. I was trying to figure out where the best place to sit in my room is, and I think I like it here because I've got a chair and it's just easy and my bookcase is right here. But let me know what you think, if you prefer this or if you prefer where I was before. Secondly, I have a channel name now. I figured that I couldn't just be Caris forever because I'm not the only Caris on the planet, believe it or not, and I was really struggling with what to call myself. I didn't want to go back to my old name, which was Caris on Reading when I was on BookTube before, so I settled on Caris's Corner because I feel like this is my little corner of the internet where I can talk about books but also other things that I love, like musicals and travel. So let me know what you think on that as well. But aside from that, I wanted to talk a little bit about my September reading plans, and more specifically my TBR for the Bratz readathon. So I first found out about the readathon because I saw the announcement video on Katarina's channel. I'll leave a link to that in the description, and I'll also leave a link to the Twitter and the Instagram account of the Bratz readathon. Basically, this readathon runs all the way through September, and there are 4 sets of prompts based on each one of the Bratz characters, and then there's a group book as well. So you can basically choose your favourite Bratz character, or you can choose which one you prefer the prompts to, and try and tick off books that meet each one of those goals throughout the month of September. I just love this idea because when I was little I used to be a massive Bratz fan. I never had Barbies, I always had Bratz dolls, and my favourite was Jade, so that's the team that I've joined and the TBR that I'm going to be following. So there's 4 prompts and then there's the group book, and I've picked a separate book for each one of the prompts because I think it should be doable. So the first prompt is based off Jade's nickname Cool Cat, and that is to read a book either featuring a cat or with a cat on the cover, and this was the one I struggled with the most. But in the end I decided to go with Tilly and the Book Wanderers, which is book 1 in the Pages & Co series by Anna James. I think there's a cat that features in this. I'm not entirely sure. If there's not, then I'll have to think of something else, but I really struggle looking through the books that are either on my TBR or books that I own, and this is just the one that appeals the most to me. So it's a middle grade series about a girl called Tilly who lives above a bookshop, and one day she realises that characters from her favourite books start appearing in the shop. So she meets characters like Anne from Anne of Green Gables and Alice from Alice in Wonderland, and with the help of these characters she tries to figure out a mystery which is connected to her mother, who, you know, at the beginning of the book has died when she was younger. I'm just convinced there's a cat in this bookshop somewhere, or like the Cheshire Cat from Alice in Wonderland pops up or something. So I'm going out on a bit of a whim, but I've just really wanted to read this book for a really long time. I actually met Anna James back in I think 2014 or 2015 at a Feminism in YA event in Birmingham. I've seen her around at like Yalk and stuff since then as well, and when it was announced that she was bringing a book out I really wanted to read it, and I just never got round to it, and now I think there's 3 books in this series, so I think it's about time. I think my library has this book in, so I'm hoping to go and pick it up from there, but if not then I will just have to order myself a copy of it. The next prompt is to read an Own Voices East Asian book because Jade is East Asian, and for this I've picked something that a lot of people are probably going to be very happy about, and that is The Poppy War by R.F. Kuang. I've definitely been won over by the hype of this book because I've heard a lot of people who hadn't considered reading it or didn't think it was their sort of thing read it and say that they loved it, and I'm hoping that's going to be me as well, because I've never considered myself to be a fantasy reader, but I've been sitting down and thinking, I always say that I don't like fantasy, but when was the last time I tried a fantasy book? I actually think it was probably Game of Thrones, and I liked Game of Thrones. I gave it a 4 stars. I didn't carry on with the series, still want to, but I didn't get around to it yet. But I since then have always just said that I don't like fantasy. That could be a lie, I don't know. I'm doubting myself. So I've decided that I'm going to read this, and I'm going to vlog myself reading it so I can decide for myself once and for all whether fantasy is for me or not. All that I know about this is that it takes place in a military academy, I think, at the beginning, and then there's a war, as the title would suggest. But I hear that people have a lot of feelings about this, so I'm scared but also excited. I swear every single time I sit down to film a video my camera battery is like, I'm out, you're on your own for this one, hun. So if the angle just shifted a little, that is why. I did my best to set it up the same again. But picking up where I left off, the third prompt is favourite colour, and Jade's favourite colour is green, which is why I've worn a little green t-shirt in today's video. But for this one I'm being a little optimistic, but I do really want to get around to this book this month, so hopefully. And that is Anne Boleyn, A King's Obsession, which is book 2 in the 6 Tudor Queen series by Alison Weir. I read the first one of these, which followed the life of Catherine of Aragon, I finished it in August. I started it at the end of July and I loved it, and I just really want to try and get around to one of these books a month. So these books are all historical fiction centering around the lives of one of the queens of Henry VIII. The Catherine of Aragon one started on the night that she travelled over to England and finished at her death, and this one I believe begins when Anne Boleyn is coming over to England from the French court, and then I guess it must continue until her execution. Obviously the stories of Catherine and Anne really overlapped, and I'm really interested in seeing some of the events that were mentioned in the Catherine of Aragon book from Anne's perspective, and just seeing what her characterization is like, because obviously in the first book, reading from Catherine of Aragon's perspective, you don't really love her because, you know, she's messing things up for Catherine and the whole of England. So I'm interested to see whether she's presented more sympathetically in this or not. I feel like before I read the first book in this series, Anne Boleyn was the wife of Henry VIII that I knew the most about, but even so I don't know a great deal, so I'm just really interested in learning more, because that's what I felt I got out of the Catherine of Aragon one. Like, I just learned so much and I loved that. And the final prompt is passion for fashion, and that is to read a trendy book, so a book that's just really well known, hyped, talked about all over the bookish side of the internet. And for this one I'm going to pick The Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo by Taylor Jenkins Reid. I'm listening to Daisy Jones and the Six on audio at the moment and I'm really enjoying it, so I'm really interested in picking up more of Taylor Jenkins Reid's work. Obviously this is a very hyped book. I feel like everyone has read it except for me, as I felt with Daisy Jones, so it fits perfectly for this challenge. But even though it's so hyped, I feel like I don't really know that much about it. The same with Daisy Jones. Other than the fact that it's centered around a band, I really didn't know anything about it. I have actually really enjoyed going in with sort of no knowledge, no expectations of what's going to happen, so I think I'm going to do that for this one as well. But it definitely fits the prompt, and if I don't get around to reading the Anne Boleyn book, then this also has green on the cover, so it works for that prompt as well. And the final challenge for the Bratz readathon is to read the group book, and this book was picked because of Nevra and Roxy, who are apparently the first FF romance relationship in the Bratz universe, and the group book because of that was The Henna Wars, and I really want to read this. It sounds so cute, but I've literally looked everywhere for it, on every online retailer I can think of, on independent bookshops websites. I've looked in bookshops when I was in London yesterday and I just can't find it anywhere, so I'm not sure if I'm going to be able to get my hands on it. I could download it on my Kindle, but I don't know. I don't really like paying a lot of money for books on my Kindle when I know that I want to have them in like my physical collection, so I probably won't do that. So if I can't get my hands on it, then I'm sure I'll read it at some point in the future. And the hosts know that it's been really difficult for people to find, so they have said that if you can't read this book, then any book which features an FF romance could work for this point. So I haven't actually decided which book I would pick as a substitute for it. I think there might be an FF relationship in Evelyn Hugo, I'm not entirely sure, but I'm sure I've got something behind me that could work for this prompt if I can't get my hands on the book, but I'm hoping that I can, so I'm just not going to pick anything for that one just at the moment. But yeah, that was my TBR for the Bratz readathon and the basis of my reading plans for September. As I said, I do have some other plans. I've got a whole week that I've blocked out at the end of September where I really want to try and do a bit of a themed reading challenge for myself, which hopefully, if all goes to plan, I will vlog, so I'm not going to say any more about it. I have got a couple of weeks away in September as well. I'm going to Kent for the week, and then I'm going to Cornwall for the week with my family, and I actually think that lends itself really well because I know definitely when I go to Cornwall I always seem to get loads read. I've got a really long journey there and back to begin with, and also just driving to and from places. I'm actually very lucky in the fact that I don't get travel sick when I'm reading in the car, so I can always do that and just be at the beach and in the evenings in the accommodation. So I'm very hopeful that September is going to be a very successful month in terms of reading for me. But other than that, that is it. Let me know in the comments if you've read any of these books and what you thought of them, or let me know if you're taking part in the Bratz readathon, or if you're not, just let me know what you're planning on reading this month. Other than that though, that is it for today's video. I hope you're all keeping safe and staying well, and I'll see you again next time. Bye!